Yes.
He'll bypass him on the back straightaway. That should be all she wrote. Christopher Bell into turn 3.
It's the Viva Mexico 250.
Beaver County Radio and the Pennsylvania Hot Rod Company have teamed up again for the 3rd annual Cruisin' the Ridge Car Cruises. This year's car cruises are presented by Falcone's Moon Township Ford, AK Nahas Appliance, Furniture, Mattress, and TV, and Dan Hoffman State Farm Insurance. Join us Saturday, June the 21st from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. for the second of 5 cruises this year. The cruises are held at the Beaver County Radio Studios at 4301 Dutch Ridge Road in Brighton Township. Solid Gold Saturday host J.D. Merkel will be spinning tunes in the parking lot. There will be food trucks, a 50-50, and a Chinese auction. New this year is a swap meet area, and each cruise will have a theme to it. June's theme is trucks. The cruises are rain or shine, and the first 100 receive a dash plaque. Collect all 5 for a chance at a special prize at the end of the year. Cruising on the Ridge is also sponsored by Freedom United Federal Credit Union, Rochester Paving and Seal Coating, Hank's Frozen Custard and Mexican Food, the Fryer Transportation Group Incorporated, the Pennsylvania Hot Rod Company, and Beaver County Radio.
You're listening to 99.3 FM, presented by St. Barnabas, in addition to 1230 WBVP Beaver Falls. Welcome to the Best of Beaver County, presented by St. Barnabas, a weekly segment dedicated to putting the focus on the amazing things and the amazing people behind them in Beaver County. The Best of Beaver County is sponsored by and content is provided by St. Barnabas. The show airs every Thursday from 11 to 11:30 on WBVP, WMBA, 99.3 FM, and Facebook Live. Now, with no further ado, let's welcome host Mike Romigh to introduce today's program.
Interesting people, places, businesses. If it's interesting and it's happening in Beaver County, we want to shine a spotlight on it here on the Best of Beaver County on the St. Barnabas Radio Network. And someone who is no stranger to our studio, coming to us from the Lower Valley, from the Ambridge area, and Old Economy and all those areas down there, Valerie Pedigo is with us. Good morning, Valerie.
Good morning, Mike.
You like this place, don't you?
I love this place.
Do you want a radio show?
Huh?
Would you want a radio show?
I would love one.
Well, maybe that's in your cards because you're doing just about everything else.
Yes.
You're all involved. There you go. Somebody's bringing in some water.
Thank you.
And we're all set to go. But today we're going to talk about Renewed Spirit. That is your business, right?
Yes, Renewed Spirit Adventures.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, Renewed Spirit Adventures is a holistic wellness company, organization, created to help women prevent, identify, and overcome burnout and process and deal with major life challenges and major life changes.
Is that a major issue with women?
Yeah.
Are we only now recognizing it? Or, I mean, because it's probably been happening for generations.
Yeah, it's been happening for a long time. I think the paradigm is starting to shift where women are starting to acknowledge the fact that they take on way too much. And as we go through our lives, we add layers, and we can talk a little bit more about this, Mike, but you know, we start out as our full authentic selves, and then over time, we have pain, shame, conditioning, societal expectations that really add layers to who we were originally. And as a society, we really condition women to say, walk it off, right? Deal with it, push through. You got to be strong. Yeah. Admitting that you need help is weak. And so it is a huge issue, but the conversation's starting to open up, and it makes me really, really excited, and we want to be a part of that.
But this is generational.
Yes.
I mean, our great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, you know, you got married and the wife was the homemaker. The husband went out and he was the breadwinner. And you had his meal ready when he came home, and you rubbed his feet if he needed his feet rubbed, and you took his punches if he was having a bad day. We think that's all in the past, but I get the impression that it's not for most people.
Well, things change and transform. However, the idea that there's a lot of invisible load that women carry, okay? And let me just first say there's a focus for us on women because that's where our passion lies. That does not mean that we believe that there's no men's mental health issues. There is, and we hope in our vision in the future to create programming for men. But right now, women, first of all, it's in our heart to help and empower. Authentically, we can, because we've been through a lot of the storms that our sisters have been in. So I think that things look a little bit different than they may have generations ago, but the idea that women are taking on so much and don't necessarily have an outlet or a safe place to talk about these things or to heal from these things, it spans time.
Yeah. And things that men, we don't always realize that.
Right.
We're maybe oblivious to it. You know, we just think, you know, you're maybe, well, I'll just say it. For years, it used to be, oh, it's that time of the month. That's why she's like that. And they used to just push it off and say, you know, you got a job to do. What's so hard about it? You're raising the kids. You get to stay home all day.
Yeah.
You know, and women have taken that and it just becomes subservient in a sense. Now, I believe that women can control the world. Yeah. I believe that women, we're seeing what's happening today in politics, not only in this country, but around the world, that perhaps women aren't, you know, what do we used to say about women in politics? Oh, yeah, you just, you know, too emotional. Too
much. Yeah. Right. Yeah, I love you. You're breaking it right open, Mike. You're talking about the things.
About it.
Yeah,
tell these guys.
Well, it's not a us versus them. Oh. It's more about creating containers for people to feel safe. It's about education, and it's about community. And
can women stick together? Because that's another thing, and you don't have to be in politics to have heard this before. Women are their own worst enemies, right? Have you heard that before?
Yeah. If you're referencing like the solidarity that exists between women can kind of go away sometimes when there's competition involved because of the pressure.
Refer to it as catty.
Yeah.
You know, you know, and then we just saw Elon Musk and Donald Trump having this big, very public breakup and blow up, and they say, wow, you thought women were emotional about these things.
Yeah. So
you get right into it. So tell me about how this can be helped in terms of how do you get. I'm going to sound like such an old fart in this. How do you get your guy to understand it? Because you don't really care if your guy understands you or not. You just have to know yourself, right?
Well, a solid support system is really, really important, and communication about what you're going through and understanding if your partner has the capacity to be able to support you. A lot of this is an individual healing journey. But we don't live in a vacuum. We don't exist in a vacuum, right? We have family systems, we have community systems, friends. And so you're trying to get me to solve the entire dynamic between men and women on this radio show.
But can we do that in a half an hour?
Yeah, can we do it in a half hour? I might need 45 minutes. But no, I love the question you're asking, Mike, because that question that you're asking is the question that partners, spouses, friends, fathers, sons, right, should be asking the women in their lives. And we should just be asking each other, what do I need to do to best support you? How can I show up for you and understand what's happening? And I'm going to talk about it from the women's perspective. Yeah. I think that, as I mentioned before, we are programmed to say everything's fine. Just think about if you ask someone, how are you? Right? What's the default response that we all use?
I'm fine.
I'm doing fine. Yeah. Doing good. Can't complain. Right? Could be worse.
Yeah.
And so there's this stigma around vulnerability and talking about emotions, and it's really not healthy. So my best advice for a man who wants to support a woman in their life that they notice is perhaps disconnected from themselves, is to say, you aren't going to be able to fix it. It's not your responsibility to fix it. However, you can ask questions, you can listen, and you can create a space that allows your person to start on the healing path. Mm-hmm. And so we can talk about some of those things. And, I'm just really happy that you're asking about that, because I think it's really important. But the first thing is a woman has to acknowledge without shame that they are starting to disconnect from themselves. And our goal at Renewed Spirit Adventures is to get ahead of it. Okay? Myself and my business partner both went through clinical burnout. And the goal here, and we will be able to support any stage of that. However, the vision is that over time, we're able to prevent and get ahead of those things, because people are so in tune, women are so in tune with their emotions, how they're feeling, what's right for them, changes that they need to make. That's the vision.
How are you able to recognize your true self? How do you know? I mean, if you've been bombarded with these messages your entire life,
yes,
from childhood up to adulthood and beyond, how do you recognize what is my true self?
Yeah. It is not easy, mm-hmm. and it does take a lot of time and reflection and space. However, there are some things that can be done. So I want to talk a little bit about what makes us special,
sure,
which is our integration framework and our mm-hmm. coaching framework. And that's something that is a few different steps that women can take, and what we help them through to create a plan and a path. So the first part is typically our nervous systems are very dysregulated. So if I ask a woman in your life, Mike, for example, like, tell me about your true self, I know for me, when I was going through it, I didn't remember, mm-hmm. right? There's always that core, the pieces of you that keep shining through and peeking through. But my nervous system was so dysregulated that I was in fight or flight mode, survival mode, for a long time. So the first step, before we even get to talking about authenticity and your authentic code, is to acknowledge without shame that we are struggling and that our nervous system is dysregulated. Okay. And that comes in, there's probably things that you've heard of, right? Fight or flight, mm-hmm. freeze or fawn. And those are survival reactions that happen within our brain and within our body that tell us we're in danger. And we need to first neutralize that by understanding that what we're doing by living in survival mode is creating chronic, unmanaged stress. We were not meant to feel like that all the time. And the interesting thing, as I continue to study this and as we continue to do research and create programs, is the part of our brain that protects us in stressful, life-endangering situations also can feel those threats just by the thoughts that we think, okay? Mm-hmm. So it's really, people refer to it as like the lizard brain or the caveman brain. Sure. But basically, it's like when you are in that nervous system dysregulation and something starts to crumble around you in modern day, it truly, your body thinks that you are being chased by like a saber-toothed tiger, mm-hmm. right? And so we don't realize it, all the things that impact us in that way, because we think, well, there's no animal chasing me right now, mm-hmm. but the animal that's chasing you are the things that are disconnecting you from self, right? Saying yes to things when you should be saying no, forgetting about yourself, people pleasing, right? Perfectionism, overachieving, all those different things really create that environment. So that's the first part. And then once we have that regulation and we are in stable ground, then we can start to talk about purpose and authenticity. And so the question that you originally asked was, how do you identify who you are? There's lots of different exercises that we do. One of my favorites is developing an authentic code. And an authentic code is basically like your values. Okay. And even doing that kind of exercise, there's a lot of guilt and shame that are around it. I know when I first did it, and I was thinking about what words best describe who I am as a person, because I'm complex, just like you are, right? We are human beings. We aren't one-dimensional. And I know, though, throughout my entire life, freedom to do what I wish, freedom to go where I want to go, to be with whom I want to be with, to be with whom I want to be, all those things light me up. Okay, I'm a traveler, I'm a wanderer, I'm a devoted person. And so sometimes, though, as a mother, there's that first reaction, like, I got to put my children first, or I've got to put my husband first. And the reality is that we need to be authentic to ourselves. Just because I value freedom as my number one piece of authenticity doesn't mean that I don't deeply, deeply love the people around me, right? But there's all these pressures to be what everyone expects us to be, or what we think everyone expects us to be. So, I just say it's interesting because this came up on another podcast, and actually a conversation I had yesterday. The best thing that we can do for our loved ones is identify who we are and be our true authentic self, and not do things just because it's the way that everyone else does it.
Yeah, and can you be a significant other? Can you be a parent, a good parent, in trying to achieve that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the greatest gift, right? If we don't think that our children, and even at a very, very young age, can't pick up that we are not happy, that we are not ourselves, then we're lying to ourselves, right?
That goes back to your original statement. If I say, how are you doing? You say, or how's everything? Or, nothing.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So you just deny it, shove that back.
Shove it back
Yeah.
because I want to be the hero. I need to be the hero. And we need to take care of our family. This conversation is not about selfishness, looking out for number one. This is about saying, I need to move through this life in the way that it was intended for me. And that has to do with purpose, right? A lot of people talk about purpose and what does that actually mean and how does that manifest for me? And it could be, just to keep along these lines, right? If I teach my children that the only thing that matters is their achievements and the grades that they get in school, which is something that I fell into the trap of, then I am just reinforcing that their value is based on external validation. And that's a reflection of what I think my value is based on. And so if I start moving towards internal validation and knowing that the only thing that matters is my self-love and my comfort with myself, I'm going to be able to reflect that to my children. My light is going to be bright, and they're going to know that they can be their authentic selves as well.
All right. We're talking with Valerie Pedigo. The company that we're talking about, her company, is Renewed Spirit Adventures, and we will continue talking about retreats and a whole lot of other things that you can be involved with on the Best of Beaver County on the St. Barnabas Radio Network.
Hey, Sarah, how are you?
I'm really stressed out and I feel so overwhelmed. My daughter is getting married and then I'm taking care of my mom. I could really use a break.
You should call St. Barnabas Beaver Meadows. They have a really good respite program that can give you the break that you need.
Really? Tell me more.
When I was feeling overwhelmed taking care of my dad, I used St. Barnabas Beaver Meadows respite services. I was able to take him there for up to 30 days so that I could get the break that I needed. They were able to meet all of his needs, and he had so much fun that it was like a vacation for him too.
That sounds just like what I need. How do I get a hold of Beaver Meadows?
Just call 724-495-1600 and ask about their respite services. You can also go online to stbarnabashealthsystem.com.
Have you ever wanted to work in radio? Well, now is your chance. St. Barnabas Broadcasting is a network of 11 radio stations, and we are looking for account executives to introduce St. Barnabas Broadcasting and digital media to new prospective clients and grow existing ones. Experience in sales is preferred. Interested prospective candidates can apply by sending their resume to fsparks@beavercountyradio.com or by calling 724-444-JOBS.
It is the best of Beaver County on the St. Barnabas Radio Network. Our guest is Valerie Pedigo, and she is the owner of RenewedSpiritAdventures.com. And we're finding out all about it, and there's so much more to learn. And as we learn about Renewed Spirit Adventures, we learn about women. And women becoming whole and understanding and knowing themselves. And you're talking about caveman stuff, and they say, well, you're a hunter-gatherer, you're this, you're that, you're the other thing. But women have roles in that as well, because a lot of times we think of the fight or flight dealing with just men and men's psyche. But this is so much more than that. Can you tell us more about the program?
Yeah, so I am the co-founder. I have a business partner. Her name's Melanie. And she's in Northeast Ohio. So we actually met in our corporate jobs when we were working together in the financial services industry. And we both faced clinical burnout. And we started traveling together for our work, and it just kept coming up. And as we were talking about it, the conversation got bigger and bigger with our colleagues, our friends, and we both decided, we have a passion for helping people and empowering people. We've both been coaches for our whole lives, and this felt like a calling for us. And so we do lots of different programming. One of the ways that we help women and empower them to heal themselves is through retreats and experiences. So our retreats are transformational retreats. They're each individually curated. We work with small groups. So our retreats will never have more than 10 to 15 women at a time, because we believe no matter how big we get, and we have lots of plans to scale, we will always stay true to making sure that each woman that is participating in that experience is getting the help that they need. Mm-hmm. So retreats and experiences, we got back from Costa Rica in April. So that was one of our international retreats.
It's interesting, because I just saw Aaron Rodgers at a retreat in Costa Rica.
Yes.
Just recently.
Yeah.
So what's going on down there in the jungle?
We were in the jungle. We were in the jungle for 10 days. Mm-hmm. Costa Rica is an amazing, beautiful place to heal. Mm-hmm. Both myself and my business partner have connections to Costa Rica. For me, it was the first place that I traveled internationally. I was 13 years old, and I went on a middle school Spanish exchange and stayed with a family. And it changed my life. I loved every second of it. And to this day, I still, I'm going there on the 23rd for a month because I have a home there. And I will be seeing that family that I was living with when I was 13 years old. And so we have connections there. We, in outside of that, the reason why people go to Costa Rica is because there is something, it is one of the smallest countries in the world, but it has the largest biodiversity. And so, you can find anything that you need. You can be in the jungle and the beach within a couple of minutes. That's where we were. We were on the Caribbean coast of Costa Rica at a beautiful place called the Goddess Garden. And we were in the middle of the jungle. But then if we take a 5-minute walk across the street, there's a beautiful, pristine, undeveloped beach that we were able to, I'll say leverage, but we were able to, our sisters were able to take advantage of.
Well, through this process, do you find that most women are struggling with similar issues in their own lives that can be communicated between you at these retreats?
Yes.
and through conversation?
That's a great question. because we all come from different backgrounds, right? Different experiences. We all have different visions and goals for the future of our life. So if you look at each individual woman, there's so many things that are different. However, what unites us are the themes. And so I also just had this conversation. I'm going to use this example again, but we can also use some other examples. There's a beauty that comes from having a very diverse group of women together in community, because maybe on the outside it looks like, oh, this 22-year-old doesn't have anything in common with this 60-year-old woman. But the reality is, when we go through life transitions, there are similarities. So I'll take the retreat in April. We had various different ages, 22, two 43-year-olds, 38-year-old, 47-year-old, and late 50s, early 60s. And so the thing that unites us in this burnout or in these life challenges are things like grief. For example, the 22-year-old woman, she just graduated college and she was starting her own life. And so it's exciting. There's so many possibilities, but the grief is she's not a student anymore, right? Mm-hmm. And so grief comes in lots of different forms. That's just a uniting factor. Then you talk about, we start to get to the midlife range, 35 to 55. And, I can speak for myself as a facilitator and as a participant. I'm an empty nester now. Mm-hmm. So that is its own grief, because I'm happy with my life. I'm loving watching my children grow and become adults and have their own things. But I also had to process and grieve the fact that they don't really need me much anymore, right?
Yeah. And the empty nest, the empty house, you don't need it. You don't have to take them here and there, and they don't rely on you as much.
We underestimate these changes. So I think the answer to your question is, there are a lot of fundamental things that lead to burnout. Mm-hmm. And even though everyone's journey is different and we don't ever compare traumatic situations and things like that, there are things that are themes, and these major life milestones and changes we underestimate, mm-hmm. right? It's like, oh, we're going to be empty nesters soon. Your whole life changes.
You want to hold on to them.
Yeah, you want to hold on to them, or you aren't sure what to do with yourself, or if you're in a partnership, the focus has been on the children and the mm-hmm. school and the activities, and now it's like, do we even like each other? Right?
Just sit there and look at each other.
Yeah. So it comes in different form, but the idea is the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so in these last couple of minutes of the program, how can people find out more about it, and how do they know if this is something that can work for them?
Yeah. Well, besides retreats and experiences, we also do custom coaching, one-on-one coaching, and small group coaching. And there's a lot of different modalities that we can use to help. Let's start with how someone can explore more. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of resources on our website. It's renewedspiritadventures.com. We also have a beautiful social media platform. We are on Facebook as Renewed Spirit Adventures, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. And we also are going to be launching our online sisterhood community next month. And that's going to be a space where conversations happen, resources, workshops, self-initiated learning, practitioners from all over the world, partners that we have. So what I would say is, to understand if this is right for you, take a look at those things, reach out to us, okay? There is not any obligation. What we want to do, and we have these conversations every day, we'll set up some time one-on-one to say, okay, what are you working on? What are you dealing with? Let's talk about it, and then let's make a custom plan for you to help reclaim mm-hmm. your authentic self.
I know it's been said before that most men lead lives of quiet desperation. Does that hold true for women as well?
Yeah, for sure.
And how do they know if that there's an urging or something that's internally, your gut feeling that is really gnawing at you, that you need something more.
Yeah, definitely frustration. I think, we can talk about the spectrum of emotions, but, our natural state is not anger. That doesn't mean that anger is not good. It's good. It's emotions. But like, if you're feeling constantly stressed, if you're feeling frustrated, if you're feeling angry, if you're feeling numb, there's a whole bunch of things that we can provide, Mike, to the listeners on how to identify these stages. But there are physical things that manifest in our bodies when we're dealing with this type of stress, mental, emotional, and spiritual. I can speak for myself. I had awful health problems that were unexplained by traditional medical testing. I had a brain fog so deep that I thought I had early onset Alzheimer's or dementia, because I went from feeling sharp and feeling on top of things to forgetting why I was doing something in the first place, putting sentences together. I was forgetting words. So, if something's off with you. And the idea is to stop and say, it is common, but it is not normal.
All right.
Okay?
Very good. Valerie Pedigo, renewedspiritadventures.com is the website. You can find out more information there. It's always a pleasure talking with you.
You too, Mike.
Enjoy your time in Costa Rica coming
Thank you.
up. And thank you for being part of the Best of Beaver County.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Valerie Pedigo on the Best of Beaver County on the St. Barnabas Radio Network.
Thank you for listening to the Best of Beaver County. St. Barnabas is pleased to have provided content and sponsorship for the program. Tune in this Sunday at 11:30 for an encore presentation of today's program on Beaver County Radio. And next Thursday at 11 for another edition of the Best of Beaver County on WBVP, WMBA, and 99.3 FM.